Resume recording, yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Boards, both nationally and in the Hamilton-Niagara region. So it is my absolute pleasure to be hosting today's event as I take personal inspiration in the life, legacy, and example of both Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Honorable Lincoln Alexander. I see people are still joining, which is wonderful to see. We are always thrilled with the support that we receive from the community, and we have many groups who are joining with us today, and we thank them for their ongoing support of ACA and the Hamilton community. We would like to particularly thank Councillor Narinder Nan and the Committee Against Racism for your sponsorship of this event. So we are extremely lucky to be in this great country called Canada, and we would like to pause and acknowledge the land on which we reside today. Before we begin, I would like to first acknowledge that the land on which I'm gathered on, I am personally hosting this event from my home in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Haudenosaunee Nations. Additionally, the city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas. The land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase of 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We should also acknowledge that Canada and the Hamilton-Niagara region is a place of great significance to many Black communities whose histories and presence have been forgotten and largely erased. And let us also acknowledge that many among us are descendants of or have direct experience of the forms of colonization, violence, and displacement from across the globe, both past and present. Now, at this time, I would like to invite Jamila B. to sing Lift Every Voice, followed by our national anthem. Before we hear the anthem, here's a little bit about Jamila. Jamila B. is a pop and R&B singer, songwriter, and advocate for self-love. She resides in Hamilton, Ontario, and was born to parents of Nigerian and Caribbean descent. Jamila harnesses strength from her roots to create music with inspiring messages of positivity and lyrics that resonate with matters from the heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamila B. Wow, thank you, Jamila B. Your voice is amazing. Everyone, please be sure to follow her on IG at Jamila Online. So Instagram, of course, IG at Jamila Online. We are in for an uplifting and enjoyable conversation this afternoon where you can sit back and relish in some amazing entertainment and also have the opportunity to share your opinions on two pioneers. Well, meeting online is something we didn't plan on doing almost 10 months ago, but we are happy you are here with us. We would like to keep the conversation going in the chat, so take some time today to introduce yourself and meet someone new. As a reminder, please keep your mic on mute unless you are speaking in the breakout session later on. If you have any questions, please send them to our event coordinator, Michelle E. I almost said Rochelle, Michelle E. in the chat, and she will be happy to get back to you. Okay, let's get started with a quick poll question. What is Martin Luther King Jr.'s most favorite quote? The time is always right to do what is right. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Or injustice anywhere is a threat to
what happened? My picture's coming up upside down.
Okay. So my apologies. It looks like I was muted. Okay, so as I was saying, so I'm not sure where I was muted, so I'm just going to start over. So thank you to Jamila B. Your voice is amazing. Please be sure to follow her on IG at Jamila Online. We are also in for an uplifting and enjoyable conversation this afternoon where you can sit back and relish in some amazing entertainment and also have the opportunity to share your opinions on two pioneers. Meeting online is something that we didn't plan on doing almost 10 months later, but we're happy that you're here with us. And we would like you to keep the conversation going in the chat. So take some time today and meet someone new. As a reminder, please keep your mic on mute unless you're speaking in the breakout session. If you have any questions, please send them to our event coordinator, Michelle E, in the chat, and she'll be happy to get back to you. So, as I was saying, we're going to get started with a quick poll question. And the question is, what is Martin Luther King Jr.'s most famous quote? The time is always right to do what is right. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Or injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So we're going to have this poll up for 30 seconds to get a pulse on what you think. And we'll have another poll as we continue, and we hope that you'll share your thoughts with us, and we'll share the results with you in just a little bit. So at this time, I would like to introduce the president of ACA, the one that we all know and love, Ms. Evelyn Myrie, to bring greetings. Over to you, Evelyn.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the special occasion celebrating our two icons in our communities globally, one in Canada, one in the United States. The Afro-Canadian Caribbean Association really welcomes you today. I want to thank all the people who have been supporting us, and the sponsors today are Narinda Nan, Councillor Nan, as well as we have support from the Committee Against Racism. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for supporting this very special occasion and supporting the ACCA. We have been very busy over the last year. Just this pandemic has affected us in so many ways. And the ACCA, we have been supporting our community through delivery of foods and a special grandparent program, virtual grandparent program for seniors. And just want to thank all of you who've been supporting us, donating support to the organization, to reach out and say thanks and wish you a very safe rest of the year, strength and hope. I'm not on because I'm having some technical challenges with my computer. I'm not able to go on. So I apologize for not seeing being as live. I'm sideways on the video for some reason or another, so I apologize for that. So you're just have to see the image. But I want to thank you and thank the speakers today for being a part of this celebration. We need to acknowledge and celebrate people who have made change in our communities globally and locally. And just want to thank those who are taking up the banner today, the young people who are driving change through Black Lives Matter and other movements to really have an impact on creating a better world for us all. So thank you so much.
It is my privilege to extend a warm welcome to each of you on the occasion of the Afro-Canadian Caribbean Association's remembrance of Martin Luther King Jr. and our own Honorable Lincoln Alexander. I'd also like to extend you a heartfelt New Year's greetings as we enter 2021 on the heels of what was for so many of us a truly challenging 2020. Thank you to both Matt Green, MP for Hamilton Centre, and to former MP Celina Caesar-Chavannes for taking time from your busy schedule to honor those two giants in the struggle against racism and discrimination. And a special thank you to Evelyn Myrie and the ACCA for their leadership in organizing this important online virtual tribute to these two individuals in their fight for human rights in the face of undeniable challenges and barriers. We all owe them a great debt of gratitude for their example and for their tremendous work, which continues to this day in the hands of so many. So to each of you joining the streaming today, I hope that you will all benefit from the hope each man inspires in all of us.
The highest honor I've ever had in my life is putting a key in the door where Martin Luther King Jr. put a key, because that is a symbol of unlocking the world for humanity. And I always say, welcome to where the kings lived, loved, and sacrificed to make the world a better place for everybody. Martin Luther King pretty much said you had to do two things in order to be free. You have to forgive everybody for everything they've ever done to you, and number two, you have to lose your fear of death. Not how long you live, but how well you live. And so he lost his fear of death in his kitchen around midnight on January 27, 1956, where Dr. King received his epiphany after he received a threatening phone call. We're tired of you and your mess now, and they're talking about the Montgomery bus boycott. And if you're not out of this town in 3 days, we're gonna blow your house up and blow your brains out. And he went in that kitchen and he said himself, with fears creeping up on his soul, he went in that kitchen to try to figure out how to get out of Montgomery without appearing to be a coward. And something happened when he started to pray out loud. And then he heard that voice, that inner voice, call him by name. Martin Luther, stand up for truth, stand up for justice, and stand up for righteousness. Martin Luther King Jr. could have hidden in the crowd with everybody else, but because he was such a man of character, he couldn't say no. He couldn't say, he had a choice. He had a choice. Martin Luther King, as I mentioned, had a privileged life. He didn't have to do what he did, but he said in his own words, I'm trying to do what is right. I'm losing my courage, but I'm trying to do what is right.
Wow, watching that video makes me feel humbled and thankful for such an example of fortitude, tireless advocacy, and wisdom. Now, earlier today, we asked you about Martin Luther King Jr.'s most famous quotes, and here are your responses. And it looks like the winner, the most compelling for people on this event today, is that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you for taking the time to complete the poll. Now, let's get us started with our first speaker. You are in for a treat. We have Celina Caesar-Chavannes, sorry, my apologies. Celina, I've said your name 5 million times. Celina Caesar-Chavannes. And she is a business consultant, coach, and international speaker. She currently serves as the senior advisor of EDI initiatives and as an adjunct lecturer at Queen's University. Her forthcoming book, Can You Hear Me Now?, published by Penguin Random House Canada, will be available on February 2nd, 2021, just around the corner. Celina was the former Member of Parliament for Whitby, the Parliamentary Secretary to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Parliamentary Secretary for International Development. During her term as a Member of Parliament, Celina was awarded several distinctions, including a feature in the April 2018 edition of O magazine entitled What Would You Stand Up For?, and named Chatelaine Magazine's Woman of the Year in 2019. She has a Bachelor of Science, an MBA in Healthcare Management, and an Executive MBA from the Rotman School of Management. She can be followed on all social media platforms at I am Celina CC. Celina, we're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for that very, very warm introduction, Rochelle. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you to the ACCA for having me. Thank you for everybody in Hamilton for always being so generous and gracious, even when I show up and even when I'm still here in Whitby. I'm at home in Whitby today, and I love the land acknowledgement and acknowledging also the Black communities that have contributed to this country. We're often forgotten along with our Indigenous brothers and sisters from the history and from the consciousness of Canadians, so it's critically important. I've been asked today, I'm going to set my timer because I'm a former politician, so I could talk for a very long time. So I'm going to set my timer so it goes off at 15 minutes. But I really am excited to celebrate today. Over the last year in particular, we have, even as I'm speaking right now, I have this knot in my throat after watching that video, because it was just so powerful to understand the urgency of now and the courage that is required for us to continue to work, to advocate, to do what is right, even in the face of insurmountable odds. We continue to do what is right. And for us to celebrate these lives of these individuals, these great men of history, but also of present, because their words resonate today just as much as they did way back, years and years ago. And after the year that we've had, where, less than a year ago, we were probably not in our houses on a Sunday afternoon. I'm in Whitby, as I said, it's bright, it's sunny outside. We would have probably been outside. We would have been, taking our family out. We would have been taking a walk. We would have been at the grocery or at the mall. We would have been taking things for granted. That's what we would have been doing a year ago from now, taking things that we would just think as commonplace for granted. But now we are in the middle of a global pandemic with what seems like it might not have an end in sight. In the summer of 2020, we were also presented with what was a global awakening to what many Black individuals have faced for a very long time with the public lynching of George Floyd. And on top of a global pandemic, we're now having very strong conversations about racial inequity. And that is all in the backdrop of the shocks to our economic and social infrastructure that have existed with climate change and everything else that we were challenged with. And so we are celebrating today. Why? Because I think now more than ever, we need to understand why we cannot take things for granted. Well, we cannot take these moments of now, of urgency for granted. And one of my favorite books is this book right here, Faces at the Bottom of the Well, by Derek Bell. And I'm going to read a passage of this book. I'm not going to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the sense of reliving his bio and his life story, because that's what Google's for. That's your job. You want to know about his life, you want to know about his legacy, read about it. This is what the opportunity is, the opportunity right now to learn about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak to how Derek Bell in this book spoke about Dr. Martin Luther King in the context of his struggle, and his struggle towards courageous actions that he took. We often see the speech, I have a dream speech, and we think about it as a dream, but Dr. King, as we saw in that video, had required so much courage to do what he did, to speak how he spoke, to protest, to disrupt the status quo in order for us to have equity, in order for us to have justice, in order to do what is right. He needed to have that courageous struggle, but that courageous struggle came with a cost. And Derek Bell speaks about this in this way. He spoke about, so while Dr. King led a struggle toward a goal of racial equality that seemed possible, if not quite feasible, in the 1960s, there was a deeper message of commitment to courageous struggle, whatever the circumstances or the odds. A part of that struggle was to, one, seek truth as he viewed it, even when that truth alienated rather than unified. Two, upset minds rather than calmed hearts. And three, subjected the speaker to general censure rather than acclaim. So in all that he did, Dr. King knew full well that he may be ostracized, he may be alienated, he may be shunned, he may cause people to be upset, to have these awkward conversations, to not feel comfortable, and that perhaps history might not be kind to him. History might say something about him. He didn't know what was going to happen in the future, but he knew in those moments that he had to accept that what he was saying, the truth that he was talking about, would upset and subject him to general censure rather than stardom. And I think that is important. I'm going to speak to those 3 points today in the 10 minutes that I have left. When we think of alienating rather than unifying, in this world where there is so much polarization, and we see it, I know the United States news consumes a lot of oxygen. It seems to take up so much oxygen that sometimes us in Canada can't even breathe. But there's so much polarization. There's so much division in our world right now that we really need to understand the capacity and the scope of empathy, the capacity and the scope to listen, to actually take the time to listen to the struggle that people are facing, to take the time to understand what it is that communities are going through, to take the time to really internalize, especially as allies, especially as those who want to contribute to the cause, to take the time to truly understand the who, which is Black communities, and the why, understand the struggle that we have gone through, not just in the United States, and to say, well, Canada is so much better here. Yes, this is one of the greatest countries in the world, but there has been a legacy of anti-Blackness, a legacy of oppression in this country that we must speak the truth about. And yes, it might alienate rather than unify, but that is the truth. And in order to get to reconciliation, in order for us to build, in order for us to do better, we must acknowledge the truth that there was over 200 years of slavery in this country. The truth that some of our democratic institutions had excluded us when they were built, when they were formed. And so further perpetuated by years and years of policy that continued to exclude, that continued to oppress. And now we are still fighting for those justices. whether we're talking about Indigenous communities, or we're talking about Black communities, or we're talking about people of color, or we're talking about the poorest and most vulnerable in our society. We must speak the truth at all costs. We must upset minds rather than calm hearts. Your good intentions, your hearts and prayers, that does nothing to change systems. I gotta tell you, I hear it all the time. My intentions were good. And I understand your good intentions. But if we're going to speak truth, we have to be okay with having awkward conversations. We have to understand that it is more than good intentions that is going to create equity. More than good intentions is going to bring justice. More than good intentions requires to do what is right. It requires us to act. It requires all hands on deck. It requires that we galvanize and form together the way Dr. King was able to do so many decades ago. But it's not so many decades ago. If he was still alive, he would be my parents' age. Let's think about that. Let's think about the fact that this injustice still lives, because when he was alive, he would have been the same age as like parents, grandparents. The urgency of now requires us to act, and not simply to have good intentions, and not simply to have our heart in the right place. It requires us to use that heart in the right place and that good intention to act, to do whatever you are passionate about, whether it's education, healthcare, justice, to really come to the forefront and say, I'm going to act. I'm going to try to bring equity in these systems. I'm going to try to ensure that Black and Indigenous populations are not overrepresented or over-incarcerated in our prison system. I'm going to make sure that our students all have a fighting chance of succeeding in schools. I'm going to make sure that our child welfare system in the city of Toronto does not have 40% Black children. I'm going to act. And it is through your action, it's through our collective action that we make change. So we could upset minds, that's okay. Because we know that when we upset minds, we are going to do greater good. And lastly, subjecting the speaker to general censure rather than acclaim. This is hard work. This is not easy. If it was easy, it would have been done already. We would have been done. We wouldn't be having these conversations. We'd be sitting back talking about something warm and fuzzy, but it's not done. And we need to know that we might not get the acclaim. We need to know that when we are standing in truth, when we are speaking truth to power, that sometimes that gets us pushed to the side. And there are many in this community. I'm seeing comments from Louis Marsh and Matthew Green and others. And I know Murray Clark Walker's on the call, and there's so many that have been doing the work. And oftentimes we don't get the spotlight, don't get the 6 o'clock news, don't get put on the billboards, but we still do the work. And you know why we do the work? Because in the video, the narrator talked about the fact that Dr. King had to stand up for truth. He had to stand up for justice, and he had to stand up for what is right. And he had a choice. She said he had a choice, as everybody does, as we all do. We have a choice to cower. We have a choice to sit and be comfortable. We have a choice to ignore what is happening. We have a choice to be sympathetic to those poor people over there. Or we have a choice to empathize and to do what is right. To do what is right. We're not asking for anything other than equity, fairness, justice. Those calls for action are still relevant today as they were when King was alive. That's all we're asking for. And so we have a choice. And I offer you the same choice right now. Right Now I offer you that same choice. Do you cower or do you do what is right? Do you cower or do you take up the part of the struggle that allows you to speak truth and to know that that truth is alienate rather than unify, allow you to upset minds rather than calm hearts, allow you to subject yourself to general censure rather than acclaim? I offer you that choice. I offer you the opportunity to pick up the baton where Dr. King had left it and join a movement that is greater than yourself, because it's not just us. It's not just within these borders of Canada or North America that we need justice. There are 70 million plus refugees, people around the world who are stateless that require our help too. This is not just a Canadian issue or a North American issue. This is a global issue. And so I know while we struggle with racial inequality, when we struggle through a global pandemic, we still have challenges. We still have challenges that require all hands on deck, that require us to say that we are okay living in truth, even if it does all of these things. Because we know that the outcome, that we know that what we do together, what we can accomplish together, what we could change together, the equity that we could bring together is so much better than anything that we could do by ourselves. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure spending the afternoon with you. And I will, I think, maybe open it up for questions. And that was 14 minutes and 49 seconds. Yes, Celina.
Yes. That was so amazing. Thank you so much, Celina. You know, everything that you said resonated, of course. And, you know, I think about so many things like the saying, what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. I think about when you said, you know, love and light and thoughts and prayers don't create actual change or a different outcome for anyone. And so it really is important for all of us to, you know, identify the things that are within our purview, what's our circle of influence, and to make that choice to commit to actual change so that we can create a better future for our babies that are coming up, right? That are certainly change makers. And so thank you so much for your words. Now, I know that we're here to talk about Dr. King, and I sincerely thank you for your words, but I could not let you leave without congratulating you on your new book. Can you hear me now? And I was hoping, first of all, for you to tell me where we can get it.
I always have it ready, so thank you.
Yes.
Boom, here you go. So I'm, if anybody is interested in getting the book, it is really a look back over my life as an immigrant to Canada. The first 9 chapters are related to that. The last 4 chapters are my 4 years in politics. And it really is a very vulnerable and it's a very vulnerable book. It talks about all my mistakes are written in here because I want our generation, people coming after us, to know that they're not the only one to make a mistake, and they're certainly not the last. And I want them to not make those mistakes, to not have those pains. So I put them all here in black and white. I'm very nervous about it coming out because I'm afraid to be judged, but I just think it's so important that we share our stories. Stories are sticky, and we need to be able to share our stories and build build resilience in others through our vulnerability. If you are considering purchasing the book, I would recommend that you go to A Different Book List, their website. It's a Black-owned bookstore in Toronto, and they have the books available. They also have hundreds of little signed placards of mine. So they would be gracious enough to put one of them in there, but I thank you very much. And again, it's available through Penguin Random House. They published me, and but a different book list in Toronto. Sorry, I'm so flustered all of a sudden.
Okay. Oh, well, I am so proud of you. And I thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing your story. You are absolutely right that by sharing our stories, people can see, first of all, that trailblazers like yourself are human beings, that we make mistakes and that we learn from those and we pivot. However, you're right. We don't want those same mistakes to necessarily be the downfall or the peril of future generations. I also have to add that Matthew Green has shared that he is so inspired by his dear sister Celina that he would like to purchase and donate 10 copies of Can You Hear Me Now, her first-hand account of her time on Parliament Hill, to the first 10 donors of the ACCA's Senior Pandemic Relief Program. So
can I just say, Rochelle, that I just went to Gallery View and I did see one of my favorite people, my Mama Jean, is on the line, and I do have to leave because I have another couple of events. But I do want to offer my heartfelt congratulations to the Honorable Jean Augustine, Parliamentarian of the Year from Maclean's this year.
yes.
I'm so hyped for her. So I don't want to take away from the event today, but I just had to acknowledge that my sister from Grenada is also on the line.
And a true icon in and of herself, whose shoulders has so padded her shoulders that all of us are able to stand on her shoulders, and so it's very beautiful. And you're absolutely right, more than well-deserved honors. And to I say Auntie Jean, Mama Jean.
I can call her Mama.
Mama, absolutely. So yes, absolutely. So thank you. And again, so the first 10 donors to the Senior Pandemic Relief Fund will receive from Matthew Green. Thank you, Matthew. Will receive a copy of Celina's book, Can You Hear Me Now? It is out on February 2nd. And yes, go to a different book list to purchase that. So so thank you, Celina, again. We are now going to move into the rhythmic component of our program. Now, what's an ACCA event without hearing the rhythmic sounds of our forefathers? And so today we're bringing you the majestic sounds of Quammie Williams. Let me share with you a little bit about Quammie. Rudi Quammie Williams is a mentor, a trailblazer in and of himself to youth, community businesses, organizations, and individuals. He is a multidisciplinary artist who specializes in the use of arts and culture in African-centered learning opportunities. He has dedicated his 40-year career to, amongst other things, the re-education of the African Canadian community on the value of their ancestral instrument, the drum. He is a co-founder of Use of Theory, Sankofa, and Baro Danumba, 3 ensembles dedicated to educating and entertaining through the presentation of African and African diasporic music and dance. And so now, please allow the rhythm of the drums to move you as we listen to Quammie Williams.
Thank you, my sister. I truly appreciate everything that I have heard today. What a very inspirational gathering. And of course, Miss Celina is always inspiring. And thank you so much for what I would call a reality check, because I think we need to have that often. So I want to thank Celina for that. I also want to give a shout out to that amazing young vocalist that I heard today. Whoever she is, I think it's Jamila B. Please, Jamila, know 2 things. One, that you have created a fan, okay? And I've played with some incredible singers, and I am so inspired by hearing your voice, the purity, the clarity, and I want you to keep that up. I also want you to know that as artists, we have a very unique position in our struggle, and that is we are the fuel. We are sometimes the people who soothe the pain. There's Jamila, I think. We are sometimes the people who soothe the pain, but we are also the people who in our messages can relay some very harsh subjects sometimes in a way that will be palatable to the masses. And we, for that reason, hold a significant and important role. So Jamila, I want you to know today, you know, I'm a gray bearded guy now. I've spent my whole life in it, but I am passing on to you the mantle of securing, okay, the arts and culture and the significance of it within our struggle, okay? Big burden to bear, but I know you got it because I heard what I heard today. So I want to thank you so much for that. Blessings. So I thought that I would dedicate what I'm about to do today to the icons upon whose shoulders we stand on. Some of them are living, some of them have gone on, but regardless, I feel very connected with the people in my community who have gone before me. Some of them are my peers, you know, like Louis Marsh and I went to school together since we were teenagers. So some of them are my peers, but at the same time, it doesn't diminish the fortitude that they have provided us. So I want to dedicate my performance today to that. And as they say in my business, stop talking, play. All right. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We know we will. We will get there. Heaven knows that we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be rocky and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows that we will get there. We know we will. We know we will. We know we will. We know we will. remember that as African people, when our ancestral instruments are being played, normally we don't stand in one spot. I'm gonna forgive you because I know the whole Zoom thing, But please feel free to get up and jump a little bit. I'm gonna try to give you something that you can dance to. I'm gonna go back to an old chant that I learned as a boy growing up with my grandparents in Trinidad and Tobago. And it goes like this. Gone Maruga road, gone to Lavovia. How far she gone? She gone Maruga road. Gone Maruga road, she gone to Lavovia. How far she gone? She gone Maruga road. Gone Maruga road, gone to Lavovia. How far she gone? She gone Maruga road. Gone Maruga road, gone to Lavovia. Consider that the power that these instruments, our ancestral drums, brought to our people is the very good reason why in all parts of the Western Hemisphere where African people played their instruments, they were banned. Because it wasn't very difficult to figure out the power that these instruments brought to our people. And so I submit that one of the most important things that we can do, all of you with children who are banging on the tables, showing you that they're drummers and you're not recognizing it, please consider this. One of the greatest things we can do is bring back and embrace our ancestral instrument. It is the foundation of our musical culture in the West and our connection to our ancestral land. So please join me in embracing all of the various manifestations of the African drum. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your ceremony today. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Evelyn Myrie, always out there doing the work. I appreciate that. And to our honorable judge who is hosting us today, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, yes, that was amazing, amazing. It brings me back to the time when I used to dance with Ballet Creole when I was a young girl. And so you have brought back some wonderful memories, Quammie. Thank you so much for that. I know that I was dancing. I broke a little sweat, not too much because I'm still hosting, but I hope that everyone got to brook out a little bit and, enjoy yourself and really just tune right back into our ancestral rhythm. So thank you so much for that, Quammie. It's truly, truly appreciated. So we're going to take a little breather and we are going to continue on with our programming. Okay, I'm going to catch my breath. So we have another poll question for you, and this time it is about the Honorable Lincoln Alexander. Again, we're going to keep this poll up for 30 seconds to provide you with an opportunity to provide your thoughts. And then after that, we will share a brief video. So here are our polling questions. What is Lincoln Alexander most famous for? The options are: in 2006, he was named the greatest Hamiltonian of all time, being Canada's first Black MP, being Ontario's 24th Lieutenant Governor, serving as a corporal in the Royal Canadian Air Force during the Second World War. So please take a moment to answer our poll, okay? And then we will go into a video about Lincoln Alexander.
The Senate and the House of Commons have passed the following bills to which they humbly request Your Excellency's assent. An act respecting Lincoln Alexander Day.
It was on December 9, 2014 that a Senate bill to officially mark January 21st as Lincoln Alexander Day nationally received royal assent and became law. On January 21st, Canadians marked the third annual Lincoln Alexander Day. CPAC was on hand for this year's commemoration events in Lincoln Alexander's hometown of Hamilton, Ontario. Students from a local elementary school named in his honor helped celebrate his life and legacy.
Today, we have chosen to share a selection from Lincoln Alexander's memoirs that reminds us to cherish the sacrifice so many men and women made long ago for our freedom.
We should never forget the torch of the past should be held high.
Born in Toronto on January 21, 1922, to Caribbean immigrants, Linc, as he was affectionately known, went on to serve with the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II. He would later attend Osgoode Hall Law School, where he graduated in 1953. In 1968, he made history when he was elected to Parliament.
He accomplished many firsts. He was the first Black MP elected to the House of Commons, the first Black cabinet minister, and his portfolio was Labour, which is very important to Hamilton. The first Black chair of the Workers' Compensation, and the 24th Lieutenant Governor of Ontario.
His admirers are from all parties, all races, and all walks of life.
We're so proud of Lincoln Alexander, who's done so much great work. Him coming from Hamilton means so much to us that we're so proud of him that we named the highway after him, we named the school after him.
Grade 5 students from Lincoln Alexander Elementary School shared their thoughts on the Trailblazer.
He did lots of great things for Canada. He got rid of lots of racial harassment, and he was also very kind.
And he inspires people all across Canada to follow their dreams. No matter what the situation is, it'll always get better.
Linc broke down barriers and became a leader in the fight for racial equity in this country. He paved the way for so many, like Hamilton's first Black City Councillor, Matthew Green, who was elected in 2014.
For me personally, celebrating Lincoln Alexander Day is a reminder to continue the fight for justice, to continue the fight for equality, to continue fighting against things like racism and misogyny and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism and all the things that he stood for.
In celebrating Lincoln Alexander Day, we're celebrating equality, we're celebrating multiculturalism, we're celebrating hard work and education, and just being a good community member.
The Honorable Lincoln Alexander passed away in 2012 at the age of 90. Reporting from Toronto, Ontario, I'm Heather Seaman.
Amazing. So now I just, every time I see something like that, I think about when I preside over ceremonies in Hamilton and how many times I ensure that I mention Lincoln Alexander's name. There are so many people receiving their citizenship in Hamilton and yet don't know that this road that they might have driven on, the Lincoln Alexander Parkway, was named after such a great man, and that the legacy upon which so many people hold Canada dear is because of a man like Lincoln Alexander. And so that was wonderful to see. Now, I have our polling results. So what is Lincoln Alexander famous for? So the number one answer was being Canada's first Black MP. But he was also Canada's first Black lieutenant governor, the first of so many things, as we saw in the video. And yeah, his legacy is just so great. So I'm eternally thankful for him and that legacy that he has left for us. So now we are in for quite another treat. Now, Matthew Green was Hamilton's first Black city councillor when he was elected to represent Ward 3 in Hamilton. And as the Member of Parliament for Hamilton Centre, he is the second Black Canadian to represent Hamilton in the House of Commons, the first, of course, being Lincoln Alexander. Now, Matthew has worked tirelessly on behalf of our community for many years in various capacities, and he will be sharing his thoughts on the life and legacy of the Honourable Lincoln Alexander. So, ladies and gentlemen, Hamilton's own MP, Matthew Green.
Wow. Wow. Can I just share with you what the experience would be like coming to Canada for the first time and being sworn in as a citizen, seeing your smiling face, Honorable Justice Rochelle? I want to begin in that space. I want to talk about how my heart is overfilling right now with joy. I want to talk about how Sister Celina started us off. It's Sunday and I feel like we're going to church. Can we talk what's on our heart today? Can we be familiar? Can I put all the political stuff aside and just share with you the deep gratitude and honor and privilege in which we have to gather in these times of crisis? I think about Brother Quammie bringing the drums, which in our tradition, the Fanga rhythms are a calling to community to gather, which is why this annual event hosted by ACA, an institution in Hamilton, which has been our palava hut. It has been our gathering place of community going back for decades. And I am so deeply grateful to all the incredible organizers from ACA. Obviously, I know she doesn't always like to hear me say this, but I have to say, Auntie Evelyn in our community, an absolute stalwart, and all the incredible next generation volunteers out of ACA who continue this. And I have to share with you before I get into this story that Zoom has allowed us to reconnect. There are so many faces on this call today, but one of my deepest held memories of the African Canadian Caribbean Association is when I returned to Hamilton. Because like many youth, I left not seeing any opportunities in this city. And I went away for about 5 years. And when I came back and experienced a type of loneliness that I hadn't quite experienced in my life. A lot of my friends had moved on. People had gone on to do different things. And it was actually through ACA and Evelyn who tapped me in community to come back and do a program called Afrobics. I need to give a shout out to Louise and Hyacinth and Daphne and all of my community grandmothers and elders who were the basis for my re-entry into community, absent of which, without these strong Black women, I can assure you, absent of their gathering of me in community, I would not be in the place that I am. So while we are here honoring two very distinguished men with an international impact, it is important that we always return back to the powerful Black women in our communities who offer us refuge, who offer us safety, who lift us up and dust us off, who feed us, both real in belly, but also spiritually. And I want to start with that deep place of gratitude for all the incredible women in my life and in our community, many of which who are on this call today and are continuing to lead. So yes, indeed, while it's important we learn about the details of our historical figures who today in Lincoln Alexander and Martin Luther King exemplify characteristics through which we all have benefited. But as Sister Celina said, I think we have an opportunity to speak more to the impacts of their legacy than the details of their lives lived. The details of the Honorable Lincoln Alexander are well documented. His family are on the call today, and I know that having had the privilege of building a deep relationship with them over the years in this annual event, I want to say thank you. Thank you, because as a 9-year-old, I would experience for the first time what it was like to be called the N-word. And I've shared this story. It didn't come from a schoolyard bully. It didn't come from, a stranger. In fact, it came from a kid that I had grown up playing with, that I had played road hockey with and shared lunch with. And it was somebody who I otherwise would have considered a friend. And for the first time, like many of you who have had this experience, you knew what it felt to be not included in your own community, to be isolated based on the color of your skin. And it also happened to be true that year that out of my entire school, I would be selected to go to this activity. And, I would have to share with you that the first time I was called the N-word was also the first time I got into a real schoolyard fight. And was also the first time that I served a suspension. And it was also the first time that I came across this man. This man who, at a community event, it was the International Day of the Child, and I would come to see this Black man on stage, dignified, powerful, eloquent, stand in a position of authority that I had never seen before in our community. I remember asking to my mother, "Who is that man?" She said, "That man is the Honorable Lincoln Alexander. That man is the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario and the first Black member of Parliament." Of course, as a 4th grader and 9-year-old, I had no idea what that means, but what does he do? And my mother said, "Well, son, he's a politician." I had no idea what politicians were, but I knew that I wanted to be that man. I knew that I wanted to follow in the footsteps towards a type of dignity and power. Power is not a bad word, sisters and brothers. But indeed, that dignity and power that he possessed on that stage that I hadn't seen afforded to members of our community in quite the same way. So in the years to come, I would run for student council. I would go on to high school and get into athletics and always seek to lead and be involved in the local politics. And for those of you who know Linc well, you know that he is a man who will speak it to you straight. I can recall reaching out to him and letting him know that I was going to pursue law like he did and pursue politics like he did. And he had plain talk for me. But I don't have the answers for you. The answers are contained in hard work. But you're going to have to outwork everybody in order to get these things that you're telling me that you want to achieve. It's lonely. And I can only imagine what it would have been like for him at every single step of his life through the 50s and the 60s in this country, in the Air Force, becoming elected. I know something that very few people in this country know. I know Sister Celina knows this, that when you get into the halls of the Parliament, when you get into the halls of power, there is an overwhelming whiteness in the colonial nature of these institutions. And I'll share with you that in that opening video that was looped, when you saw a picture of Lincoln Alexander, there were photographs, there were portraits, there were paintings behind him, and not one of those paintings were Black. I know because I walked through those halls. And it's only through Lincoln Alexander where today a young Black child can take a tour of the Ontario legislature and see a face that looks like theirs and know that they belong there and know that that institution is their institution. And yet when I walk through those halls of Parliament Hill, places that have been blessed by the Honorable Jean Augustine, the giant in our community, that there are still no physical remembrances of our time on the Hill. There are statues, there are paintings, there are tributes. And so in small ways, we gather and we celebrate in these national days. And next week on the 21st, I believe it'll be the official day for Lincoln Alexander Day. And I know that to be true because as a city councilor, the first elected city councilor, the first person of African Canadian descent in our city's 172-year anniversary, that was the first motion that I moved as a city councilor. That our city had yet to adopt officially the day officially of Lincoln Alexander. And perhaps in these years to come, we will organize in a place that can recognize him, that could celebrate our history in ways that are more meaningful than the collective colonialism of the John A. McDonald's. I want to go to our town square and I want to see Lincoln Alexander cast in bronze with the lessons of emancipation and liberation and not colonialism and white supremacy and violence. That's what I want to uphold in our community. That's our opportunity to enshrine in future generations the knowledge that we have been here, that indeed my people, I am here today in the spirit of Harriet Tubman, Black Moses, that we have been here pre-colonial times, that indeed we are the first refugees of these lands. Not escaped slaves, but people escaping slavery, an important distinction that I had the honor to speak into truth in the House of Commons when we were talking about Emancipation Day. But we can't talk Emancipation Day in a historical context without talking about the fact that we still have a disproportionate over-policing. We still have a disproportionate incarceration. We still have disproportionate impacts, mortality rates due to COVID. That all these systems of anti-Blackness are being laid bare, that we have a class action lawsuit of Black federal workers right now banding together to force this government to do the right thing. That's why these days matter. Not to mythologize the individual, but to share in the collective legacies of the emancipation struggle. Never letting go. Not for a second, because we know that our rights are never held in perpetuity, that they will be eroded, that they will be taken away, that at any moment we can be vilified and we can be incarcerated and we can be brutalized in these streets, that we could be left to die with inadequate health care, inadequate housing, inappropriate opportunities for real employment and meaningful employment and benefits and pensions. When you talk about labor and when you talk about injured workers and disability justices, at every single aspect of civil rights, there are Black people at the front leading with fearlessness, with courage, with dignity, and with power. That is why I come here on these days to fill my cup. And I'll share with you in closing that we are suffering from a collective post-traumatic stress disorder caused by white supremacy. That the disease and the uncomfort that you feel in seeing Black people brutalized day in and day out domestically and internationally has a profound impact on our psychology. These moments where we get together in community and we celebrate our arts and our culture and our achievement and our resilience are critically important to our collective healing. Most of the time, I spend in a dark place of anger and bitterness, and it is not because I'm angry and bitter as a person, but because I can't see the things that I see and not be mad and not be angry and not be outraged. And so in 2021, when we reset in our communities, let's ensure that these systems, these capitalistic extractionary systems that seek to take everything from us, including our lives, by the way, frontline workers. Hello, SEIU. Hello, service workers that are on the front line, in our lodging homes and our long-term care facilities, our nurses, our health workers, our food workers, our folks that are in grocery stores and in logistics, that we are ensuring that while we continue to heal, we continue to build power in our communities so that we don't have 40 years between the first and the next, so that we don't have systems that would seek to vilify the truth and brilliance of a Celina Caesar-Chavannes, that we ensure that the Black Lives Matter movement is not a moment, but is a cornerstone to future generations to come. Sisters and brothers, thank you so very much for allowing me this space. It feels like Sunday. It feels like church. I've come to fill my cup. My cup is overflowing, and it's because of the deep love and admiration I have for all of you. Thank you for allowing me to join this special time with you. And should I be given the opportunity, I look forward to coming for years to come. And please do, in closing, with whatever means you have, and I'm going to start off by making a donation so that you know I'm not just speaking this, but to the African Canadian Caribbean Association for their seniors program. Whatever it may be, whatever your discretionary income has, the first 10 people, I will personally ensure that you receive Can You Hear Me Now, Celina Chavannes' book. For the rest of you who can, in whatever ways, please do click the link, and let's put it back in there so people know. 25 bucks, 50 bucks, 250, whatever you can afford. Please do make that donation. Right now, that is your call to action. Right now, let's make sure that we do not allow for our vulnerable seniors, that we come together in our principles of Afrocentric solidarity to ensure that none of our seniors get left behind in this year to come. Thank you. And with that, I'll hand it back over to our always honorable Justice, Sister Rochelle. Thank you.
Matthew, thank you. How powerful. I am so proud of you. I know that I had the privilege, your first week in Parliament, we ran into each other in Ottawa, and I gave you the biggest hug that I could. So proud of you. I can't wait to have you in a virtual ceremony with me. And just thank you so much for sharing your truth and for your tireless work on behalf of not just Hamilton, but on behalf of our community. Thank you so much. And also give little Langston a little kiss from me. Yes, the most adorable Langston. He's so cute. Now, as we know, Lincoln Alexander was a great man, and he left a legacy that not only we can be proud of, but inspired by. And I would be remiss not to mention Miss Erica Alexander, who is here with us, who is Lincoln Alexander's granddaughter. Thank you, Erica, for joining us. And you know, that legacy that lives on in you. I know that you're doing amazing work yourself, Erica, and I'm just so thankful for the work that you do to continue to build and to honor your grandfather's legacy, and also to just also build your own as an individual. So yes, so we will be taking a 3-minute break. Now, during that time, as Matthew said, I would like for you to donate to ACCA. ACCA has been doing so much for our community. I know Celina posted the link. I know that they will be posting the link again in order for you to be able to donate. We're going to take a 3-minute break. And when we return, we're going to have a breakout session hosted by myself and another one by Evelyn, where we will be carrying through with these conversations and continuing to build these conversations just a little bit deeper. So take a moment, use the facilities, and come on back. We have 3 minutes.
in this moment. It's still really incredibly important for law enforcement leaders to stay focused on the people who organized, who led, who funded the January 6th event, and most important,